Good afternoon, beautiful people, and welcome to the Little Things You Can Do podcast. On this podcast, we talk about the little things that parents can do to help their children navigate this crazy and beautiful world. Tonight, my charge for you is you are what you think about. And there's an old Jamaican saying, it says, you have to learn to dance a yard before you can dance abroad. And it's about how a child behaves at home. That's how they will behave outside of the home. So it's just like whatever you do at home, that's what you do when you're out. And I want to talk about how children copy their parents' behavior, mannerism, and attitude. And it could be anything, whether at home, at school, on the road. Just all our children copy our behavior. Whatever we do, our children are looking on. And I don't know if you've ever met someone and without knowing who the father or the mother is, you can tell from the parent, the child's behavior, that that person is their father. Or if you see the father and see the son, they look alike, but also their mannerism is the same. I'm going to give you a backstory. Many years ago, I would get angry and I would slam a door or get angry and stomp off. And lo and behold, my 19-year-old started doing it. And when she did it the first time, I was upset. The second time I was. And then after a while, I got to think to myself, she's only copying you. That's exactly what you do when you're upset. You slam door, you stomp off. So she is just copying you. She's looking in the mirror, picking up my attitude, picking up a negative behavior, and she's just doing it because that's exactly what I do. And I'm going to gear this towards schooling. So, backstory. I met a mother once and she said to me in front of her son, I left school when I was 14 and nothing is wrong. And I'm thinking to myself, that is not a conversation you should have with pride in front of your child when you are not living your best life. Yes, if you've left school at 14 and you are a high flyer, entrepreneur, you've got your own business, you've got the right car, you're in the right neighborhood, the best house, then you can say that to your child, I left school at 14 and this is what I've achieved. But she's saying to the child, I left school at 14, she wasn't living in the best place, she didn't have any money, she she was at the bottom. And she was saying that in front of her child. I'm not saying we should hide things from our child, but we've got to be careful the things that we praise. My example, I don't I didn't like spellings when I was going to school. Fridays was my worst day because Friday afternoon we have spellings, and that was my worst day of the week because I didn't like it. I've shared that my distress of spellings with my children, but it wasn't a way to brag and says, "Oh, you don't have to learn to spell." I let them know my downfall. I let them know the things I dislike, and I help them. So my two girls don't have that problem. So I'm not saying we should hide our faults or things that we find difficult in our childhood from our children. I'm not saying we should hide it, but we got to be careful how we say to them, because if it come across as they don't need to do better, I promise you they won't do better. And I'm bringing this towards education. If a parent, mothers, fathers, if a family speaks highly of education, as in the value of it, going to school, being respectful to your teachers, do well in class, get your homework done, study hard, most of the time, the child will have the same mannerism towards education. But if the parents discuss the teachers and authority in a negative way, that child is going to have a negative outlook on their teacher. And also, they won't do well in school. So I've heard parents say to the child, "Oh, you don't need to pass maths for GCSE because I didn't pass it." Now, that's not a bad thing to say, but we've got to be careful what we are giving, what example we're giving our children. We've got to be careful what we are telling them. Are we saying to them, "Don't pass this exam"? and you'll be okay. Or always saying, I didn't pass this exam, but in today's world, maths is a subject that you need to progress, from GCSEs to college to university, or even finding a regular job. Most time they ask you for maths or English. So we've got to be careful the things that we brag about in front of our children, because they are copying our behavior. The other thing is, if you're a parent who's very arrogant, and you have to end the argument and you've got to hold your point, your child is going to be the same way. There's nothing wrong to hold a debate. There's nothing wrong to hold a healthy debate. But you've got to find a boundary where sometimes it's best not to speak. And if we can't teach our children to evaluate a situation and decide when to speak and how to speak, they are getting themselves into trouble, because the only example they have is what you are setting for them, which is being arrogant and I know everything and I'm always correct. The other thing is, we're talking about mirror behavior. If a mother dresses a certain way, most of the time her daughters will dress a certain way. And if a father dress a certain way, his son will dress the same way. And even the way a child walk, you can see sometimes they are copying their parent, because that you, as a parent or as a guardian, you are on a lifetime catwalk for these children. You are their first supermodel. You are their first celebrity. Yes, we may not see ourselves as the child's celebrity. The child might not say that, but they are copying everything we do. Even my 19-year-old, she can give the worst look. If she wants to give you a undermining look, she can do it. And I know she picked up that from me, because I can do one too. So I've got to be thinking, she's seen me do those things probably when I'm not happy, and she's copying them. Is it a bad thing to give somebody a nasty look? It depends. If you feel threatened, you could give somebody a nasty look to stave off an attack. But it's not something you go around and do everywhere. But as children, they may not know when is the best time to act out that negative attitude that they've picked up from their parent. And it's the same thing even in church. The child treat other people according to how their parent treat that person. I'll give you a good example. There was a father, and he was upset with the driver behind him, and he started to shout at the driver behind him. Now the police was called. There was an accident. The police called, and the boy took out the phone, and he was ringing his mom to tell his mom what happened. And the child was swearing, using the exact word that dad used to the driver that collided with him, to mom. Now, he wasn't being rude to his mom, he was just relating what dad said, what happened, and now we are waiting for the police. Now, that father was angry, he was upset, he was shocked. But because that is his, sorry, that is his MO. That is the way he speaks when he's angry. He did it in front of his child. So that child is mirroring exactly how the father behaved. And if you have, if mothers have a lot of sisters or girlfriends around them, your daughter is gonna behave like the way mom behave, or how mom's sisters behave, or how the friends that mom carry around her behaves. And the son, if dad takes him out with his boys or with other men and they play football and they behave a certain way, that child is gonna behave in that manner. I'm gonna bring it back to school. I'm saying this to parents. If you do not have something positive to say or brag about school, do not do it in front of your children, because they are going to copy your words, your action, and your mannerism towards education, towards learning, and towards authority. And I'm not saying we should teach our children to be subdued and bowing down. I'm not saying that. But if you are talking negatively at home about your child's teacher, they are coming into school with that negative attitude towards the teacher. If you're a parent that doesn't value education, the child is going to come into school and they are going to not value their education, because it's not being encouraged at home. If you are parents that failed in school because maybe you didn't have the money, maybe the country you were in, maybe your family wasn't one that pushed education, you need to find the best way to let your child know, I didn't do the best in school because of, but things and times have changed, and you as a child need to put your best foot forward. And I'm charging you as parents and guardians, mothers and fathers, you need to encourage your child to be aspirational. It is pointless you bring this beautiful, precious bundle into the world and do not encourage them. There's a saying that a friend of mine used, and she says, opportunity without ambition is a waste. And if you're living in most countries today, you have the opportunity to go to school. Our grandparents and great grandparents did not have that opportunity, and they did the best with what they have. Now, as parents, you've got to find a way how to inspire your children. If you can't do it because you just didn't do well in school, find a friend who is doing well and encourage your child to speak to them, or ask your friends to encourage them. We all know the book about, is it Rich Dad Poor Dad? He had his dad, and his dad was going to university, getting the good job, but he also had another role model who didn't do well in school, but he knew how to make money. So that boy had two good examples of what men can do. One went to university, but he just wasn't earning enough. One didn't finish school, but he was earning. And he actually said, I've got two dads, and they serve two different purposes. So if we as parents can't inspire our children because of we didn't do so well, or because of our predisposition, maybe we've got some ill health, maybe our family just didn't encourage us, find somebody to encourage your child. Because if we do not encourage our children to be ambitious, to be aspirational, they are going to lag behind in school, in their jobs, and just in outlook of life. You must have gone out and you see an entire family, and you think, gosh, everybody in this family is a delinquent, because nobody was there to break that mold. Nobody realized, okay, mom and dad fail, brothers and sisters are failing. I've got to break the mold. And we've got to break the mold that we're in. We've got to push our children to be aspirational. And if we can't do it ourselves, find a friend or a family member who can encourage our children. Because whether or not you planned it, your children are watching you. They watch everything we do, what we say, how we sit, how we look, our conversation on the phone. Our children are watching us like a hawk, because we are on a catwalk. We are the first port of call when it come on. We are the first, sorry, we are the first port of call when it comes on to modeling. We model before our children. Without planning it, our children look to us to how they behave in situation. And I'm going to wind down. If we are a parents that we are very resilient, and we are very resilient, and we are hardworking, most of the time our children will be resilient and they will be hardworking, because they are watching us. We are their role model. Before I wind down, I want to say a small prayer, and I want to ask the Lord to bless us as parents, that we do our best before these children, and that we may put our best foot forward so we can prepare our children for today, tomorrow, and for a lifetime. This is Nisha signing off. Have a great day. Goodbye.